Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Purple and Bold podcast from DNR Media and the Daily News Record. I'm Shane Metlin here, as always, with Katie Harper, but we also have a special guest here as we get ready for the NCAA tournament. We have a Harrisonburg legend, a NCAA basketball legend, one of the best college basketball players of all time, to help us break down all the March Madness. We have Ralph Sampson here with us on Purple and Bold. Ralph, how you doing today?
It's a wonderful time of year. I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Yeah. Wonderful time of year. Especially here in the area. You got the JMU women making a run. They're getting into the NCAA tournament, play against another Valley legend in Kenny Brooks on the women's side. And your Cavaliers over there making it both the women and men's team. Let's start out with that. Talk a little bit about your UVA, your alma mater. Obviously, you were one of the best, or the best player in UVA history. Made some deep NCAA tournament runs with the Cavaliers. So let's talk a little bit about the UVA men as they bounce back this season. A great season under Ryan Odom. What have you seen from them, and how deep do you think this team can go?
Ryan Odom is the best. He was 12, 13 years old when I was at UVA. His father was my assistant coach, Dave Odom, the great Dave Odom that went on and coached Tim Duncan and Wake Forest and South Carolina, all over the place. But Ron has basketball in his heart, spirit, mind, body, and blood. So he's all on basketball every day. So when he came, I saw, his passion. He brought back a lot of the culture of UVA. And I think everybody these days is big on culture. Even Tony Bennett just got hired by the Lakers to build their culture. So it's, the culture is everything in, I think, the world we live in. But the team has progressed nicely over the year. They had a great schedule so they could gel and get that done. But I was very impressed ACC tournament because you got some young guys there, some foreign guys there that's never experienced ACT basketball to the highest level. And think about those guys that went down there and played Duke at Duke, and they got their butt tail beat and got blown out. And then they bounced back, even though Duke had a couple of players that were out. They played their tail off and got a respectable game. And now they have a shot, I think, to go all the way to the Final Four.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more too about, obviously you've got that history with Ryan Odom. You knew him when he was a really young guy. Did you have any say or any involvement in the hiring process, or what was kind of your reaction when you saw that he was coming back?
No, I knew he was a candidate. Obviously, when you're a little bit removed from the school and, they got powers to be there that do their job. So I felt that he would be a candidate. My belief going into it, there was a few people that could be candidates, but it wouldn't be like bringing Ryan back to build a culture of UVA. If you brought somebody in there who was new that didn't know anything about UVA, Tony Bennett was like that in the beginning, but he got the hearts of UVA. The first couple of years of Tony Bennett's stint at Virginia, they wanted to fire him. And obviously they did. So 15 years later, it became very successful. And they won a national title. So Ryan was the right pick. And from what I do know, they had that in their mind probably way before we all know it. I think it was in the works because you cannot, and he brought his whole staff, you cannot build a team like he built, not knowing where you were going and then get higher and then have to go do it at that point in time. So I'm sure within the works from the beginning, but you got to go through the process and respect the process and get the hype of it, is right, and with the fans and the people approving. So I think he's going to do phenomenal. I'm supporting him 150,000%. Love the guy, love the family. Coach Odom's great, his wife's great, his brother's amazing. And so I think if we can capture, and I'm always a big believer of capturing the student athletes first, and not just the athlete with NIL stuff going on right now. I think we can sell the UVA experience academically and athletically. And I think we'll get a lot of great athletes at UVA at some point. Look at what football now has done. And it's climbing, although, I love that coach as well. He had some issues there with the shooting of a couple of players, God rest their soul. And so now it's back to where it needs to be. And both not only football, men's basketball, but women's basketball as well, and in the NCAA tournament. So I think sports there at UVA is really on the upswing. Swimming and all these other sports are doing, baseball, all that, they're doing well. But I always not talk about those sports sometimes because they're not as highlighted as football, basketball. But UVA in general I think, is climbing the ladder and being one of the best colleges to go to for sports.
Yeah, and I'm going to shift gears just a little bit because of what you talked about there with, establishing a culture and taking the time and giving coaches the time. When you're in the Harrisonburg area, how closely do you follow JMU on the men's side particularly? And, if you have followed them, what have you kind of seen from them in the first 2 years on the Preston Spradlin?
Well, JMU is a great school. It's home. I played pickup basketball at JMU every day in Godwin Hall when I grew up, and it was the best place to get a pickup game, right, against their players as well. So we had fun doing that. I love the way JMU is structured. I love what they're doing. I don't like over the year that most coaches, which is the way it started, but they're climbing the ladder right now. Coaches like football come there now, and it's like a feeding ground, and you win, and you got a good structure of academics and athletics there, and then you go to UCLA and take half the team with you. And basketball coaches have done the same thing to some extent, but I would like to see. I would in a heartbeat put my head in the coach at JMU basketball-wise at some point in time, just to compete with UVA, because it's my hometown. And my son, Robert, is interested in coaching now, so maybe I can get him to coach at JMU, but he's a beast coaching, and he loves to train kids. So if we can just get JMU to get a couple players, I'm sure with football is helping. And then, win a couple games and get into the tournament at least once or twice. I think it'll start the flow of people from a basketball perspective coming to JMU. The girls' team is always going to be good. The men's basketball needs some help, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned the JMU women. I was going to ask you, I know Kenny Brooks is a little bit younger than you, but came up through the area, Waynesboro guy. Do you know him very well? Like, did you kind of know him like when he was coming up as a younger guy, or have you followed his career at all?
I know Kenny very well. He married my sister Joyce's that played at Rafford's best friend at Harrisonburg High School. So Kenny's a great guy. He's in Kentucky right now. It's really good to see his career path and how he has evolved. I was trying to get UVA to hire him at one point in time. And Dawn Staley as well at one point in time, but neither one of them worked out, but both of them went somewhere else and had a great career. So Kenny's one of the top female basketball coaches in the country, and he's sitting really pretty at Kentucky right now. And Shenandoah Valley boy, I tell people all the time, if you go from Winchester to Roanoke, you got some great players that come out of the Valley, and we all know that.
Yeah, I had a feeling, even being a little bit younger, that Valley basketball community was small enough. Maybe you guys had crossed paths a little bit. That's funny that he married somebody close to you. So, you mentioned UVA women and wanting them to hire Kenny. How did that feel to you when you saw him go to Tech for all those years and take them to the Final Four and everything?
Well, he was gonna go somewhere, from JMU, what he built there. Obviously, again, another coach, JMU football, basketball, whatever it be, that's built a program and then go somewhere else and gets bigger. So we have to keep them in Harrisonburg a little longer, right, to make that work. But I felt great for him. It wasn't like I was competing against Virginia Tech men's. It was just UVA girls and whatever. But that rivalry is so large in the state of Virginia. We can say we got them this year in basketball and football. So we got bragging rights right now, but Virginia Tech will be back in football for sure, and I'm sure they'll compete in basketball at some point in time. But I like to have those rights, like Duke and North Carolina. We got the same rivalry that they have, but our schools are close or farther apart than 10, 15 miles away from another one, right? That's the only bigger difference. But the rivalry is live and it's kicking, and I got a business partner that went to Virginia Tech, and we batter each other. I'm literally battered with fist punching and words, whatever, all the time. Like, okay, great. And I grab him and hug him, like, I still love you, but you went to Tech and my education is better than yours. So it's fun to do that with Virginia Tech people.
Yeah. obviously we cover JMU, we cover the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt team in the men's side this year is Troy. And I had a specific question for you. Maybe you don't follow Troy a lot, but they had a brutal travel schedule early in this season.
Yep.
And I'm not going to try to bring up bad memories for you, but I know you had that Japan to Hawaii thing that didn't, you suffered an upset loss. But what I'm curious about is if going through that kind of thing early in the season helped you guys later on when you get into tournament play and you're doing all things that aren't necessarily your normal routine. And I think you guys, did you make the Sweet 16 that year after, losing to Chaminade? So, like, is that something that a team like Troy that spent 2 weeks in California and then crosses the country to Florida and, like, loses some games but ends up making the NCAA tournament, like, is that something that can help them eventually?
Yeah, first of all, I have to say my condolences to a young man that actually played at Robert E. Lee High School, which was my arch rival, but also played Tony Randolph, that played at Chaminade and was on that team that beat us there. So he just passed away recently, so I know everybody in the Stanton market or Charlottesville, Harrisburg, in the Valley market remembers him. But we had great rivalries back in the day, so that's kind of stemmed out. But, that game, the only good thing about the game in Chaminade that made it fun is it was 8, 9 o'clock at night, and it was somewhat 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. And guess what? Nobody really believed that game we lost anyway. So it's a crazy, crazy loss for us. But it's something that actually it's 2 losses in my whole career, NBA and college, and both of them in college. One is Chaminade. They created the Maui Classic. That started the Maui Classic with Merv Lopes. And I told Merv, he passed away a number of years ago, I said, you beat us because you had 5 against 7. You had 2 referees that cheated. And so we know that was happening. And then when we lost to NC State in the ACC tournament, because he had beat Michael, us, had beat every team, and then went on and went in the Final Four and beat Akeem Olajuwon as well. Those things, the memories, now that you look back at it, they stung, they hurt, but you look back at it, and it also created synergy around the game of basketball. So I wear size 17 shoes, so my footprint is on those 2 games for sure because of the loss, but also because of the magnitude, I think, of what was created after the fact. So we gathered, we flew all the way back. I mean, we had just won every game we played. Michael Jordan, Patrick, we have all these games prior to Chaminade. So they scheduled it, figured we could go there. We went to Houston, we went to Japan against Akeem Olajuwon, which I didn't even play, and the team won. So it was fun to see the evolution of the team. But we know when we got back home, we was like, okay, we pity the next team we play because we're going to kill them because we were mad from that standpoint. So it makes you energetic. It makes you want to get back on the court as soon as you can. And whoever the next victim is, if you want to pound them so hard that they cry. And so we did that when we came back, and we got back on another row, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Hey, Rob, well, I appreciate your time. Before we let you get going, what do you have going on in the Valley these days? What should people kind of look out for seeing you around town, around Harrisonburg and the whole Valley?
Well, good. I'm glad. Actually, I was at the DNR meeting with the people downtown, and didn't know you had a podcast until then, but I'm glad to be on it. And it's good to have it, and we hopefully get together and do something bigger with you guys as well. What we got going on as well. But then back in the Valley, obviously my mom is there. My dad passed a couple of years ago, but my mom is extremely great. And so we are parked our basketball company, Sampson Basketball Academy, at Horizon's Edge out on Route 11. And we have the lab every week. And we have our Alpha Mate after school program every week. And we have our summer camps coming up in June and July, boys camp, girls camps. You can go on the websites and check those out. But we are bringing over 40 years of experience with basketball camps back to Harrisburg where it should be. I started camps in '84 with Coach Roger Bergen at Eastern Mennonite College. At that point in time, now Eastern Mennonite University, where we had some of the biggest people in the basketball world, from Lefty Dazelles on down to, other NBA players, Alex Angels, et cetera, come, John Lucas, come and speak to kids in Harrisonburg. So we're going to bring back that flavor of bringing not only good quality basketball teaching, but also players that can come and teach and show these kids that we have in the Valley how good they can be and how much work they have to get into it. So it's exciting for me to come back and do all that. So everybody can stay tuned.
Yeah, I don't think we're back to the 80s level yet, but I think basketball.
Not yet.
Basketball in the Valley's bouncing back a little bit. We've had some state champions and things, and it's good to see opportunities for the kids to go out and do stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm working on a proposal for Harrisonburg High School. I got to get them back on track. Yeah. I know it's a little tougher now with all the other schools involved, et cetera, but I got to get my alma mater back on track. We got to win the state championship there. So stay tuned, and we'll try to work with them as well.
Well, all right. I was going to say, before we let you go, kind of going off the getting to see the Valley on a grand stage, and I know we talked about Kenny Brooks a little bit, but how much do you think it helps to have it where it is the JMU women playing against a coach from the Valley to just kind of show what this area is for basketball?
I mean, as you just said, the area of basketball is strong. I mean, kids play every day. We played every day up at Sims and at Goblin Hall every day. So having Kenny and JMU against each other and the evidence, I'm sure whoever made that happen is understanding that. And it's a great rivalry to have. But think about it, that doesn't happen all the time. Where a coach comes from one school to the next and the other school shows up and they get to play each other. So I think I'm going to be watching. It's like 50-50-50, right? So 50 over here, 50 over here, and the other 50 is my own 50. And so Kenny, I hope his team does well also, but I hope JMU wins. So it's just a matter of, what the games are like, but it'll be a fun game to watch. And the Valley is so, like I said, from the beginning, from Winchester to Roanoke, there's been amazing. We can go on for another day. Maybe we'll come back and look at all the players that's come out of the Valley in any sport. I mean, there's the Valley flavor there, and I hope to bring some other stuff back. I got a lot of vision, a lot of things I think about all the time about making sure Harrisonburg and the Valley is known for what the Valley has to offer.
Hey, Ralph, well, I really appreciate the time, and good luck with all the camps and everything. And we'll reach out to you again and see if you have anything else you want to talk about.
All right, guys, thanks for your time. I'll see you one back in Harrisonburg.
All right, thanks.
Go UVA. Hopefully they'll get a win tomorrow. Or Friday, so it's good.
All right. Yeah, so always good to get some basketball knowledge dropped on us by one of the best of all time. And I thought that jumped out to me. Like, I was curious, like, what his relationship with Kenny was going to be like, just because, like, it's a wide area, but it ends up being like a small community, especially when it comes to like the elite basketball talent around here. So like to find out there's a little connection there is cool going into this game, and cool that even though he's a UVA guy, he's going to be rooting for the Dukes. Like Kentucky. But yeah, that JMU women's game obviously is not the only thing going on around JMU these days. That'll be huge on Saturday, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about that after the game, win or lose. But spring sports continues to roll on. And, I think a week ago when we talked, we weren't quite sure what to think about really any of the spring sports teams. But those bat and ball squads, they got off to a good start in conference play, didn't they?
Really good weekend for both programs. The softball team had to bounce back from that series opening loss, but had two really, really strong performances on Saturday and Sunday, especially from Peyton List in the circle. And I was out at Memorial yesterday talking with both Lauren Laporte and Marlon Eikenberry. And Lauren Laporte was very, very happy with what Peyton was able to do in the circle over the last couple of days. And it was a performance that she really wanted to see out of one of her aces, and really, really good performance from her. And then the offense continues to just kind of chug along for that group. I would say the offense for the softball program is probably the one thing that isn't too big of a concern right now, even when they're losing, outside of maybe that one weekend where they're facing some of the best teams in the country. Even if they're losing these games, the offense has still been there. And a lot of that, I think, is coming down to a player like Kendra Lewis, who came in from Morehead State, and she hasn't even missed a beat. It seems like she's been great. She had a really clutch home run on Sunday's game to kind of extend that lead and push it out of reach of Georgia Southern, but a really, really good performance from the softball team. And I don't know if you were able to catch much of them this weekend or what you kind of saw.
I mainly saw stats, final scores, highlights, things like that. I didn't catch much of the games, but I do think it's promising that you get performances like that out of Peyton List after she was basically challenged by Laporte and the coaching staff here recently. Her ceiling is so high. It's clearly high. Like her performance against Texas Tech earlier this season was fantastic. She takes a loss, but like if she could pitch like that every time she steps in a circle, she could dominate the Sun Belt. And seems like she took a step in that direction this weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, even goes back, you mentioned the Texas Tech one, but her Penn State performance, Lauren Laporte said it, she may have said it yesterday. I know she said it within an interview with me within the last couple of weeks, obviously, because it was after the Penn State game, but she said, like, that is probably her best performance of her career, and she'll probably tell you that against Penn State. So to have her kind of hit that mark right now where they end up not having a midweek with their UVA game getting canceled, but they're going into a Coastal Carolina series, which I will have more on that later in the week. But Lauren Laporte said that this team that they're about to play is potentially one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. They weren't necessarily ranked that high in the preseason poll, but they're the reigning conference champions, and Laporte has a lot of praise for them, and that's going to be a challenging series where you're going to need someone like Peyton List kind of at the best of her level of play.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot. We're getting into March Madness. We talked a lot about the Sun Belt as a women's basketball conference this year, having one of its best years, ranked really high. Every single team in the Sun Belt on softball is top 100 RPI right now, which means you're not going to play a bad team, and you're going to be challenged every week, but you're also going to play games that could maybe keep boosting that RPI to the point that this is a multi-bid conference in softball once again. And, it's early. It's hard to tell. They didn't rack up too many of those wins against that tough non-conference schedule. They did get that Penn State win. But, if they could play like they did this past weekend, could this be a team that gets back to the NCAA tournament?
I think they very much could. And I think this is still a team that is very hungry from how last season ended, that I would almost expect them to make a pretty good run into the conference tournament just because they want to get back to that championship series and they want to flip the script and walk away with the trophy. But you kind of mentioned it being a multi-bid league. It's so similar to what we're going to see on the baseball side of things where, you look at JMU and they're projected to finish 13th in the Sun Belt in the preseason polls, and they come out and they not only win their first series, they sweep Georgia Southern, which that's not to say Georgia Southern wasn't a team that was projected to win the conference by any means. I think they were projected to finish tied for 7th, but that's still a substantial gap between where Georgia Southern was picked to finish and where JMU was predicted to finish. And, if you think back to 2 years ago where the baseball program makes the Raleigh regional final, if you go back to the Sun Belt tournament that year, Georgia Southern was a program that knocked JMU out of that tournament. And it was a team that JMU struggled against in the Sun Belt tournament. So to get that series win similar to what softball did and to do it in a sweep, major step forward for the baseball program.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia Southern's obviously struggling right now. If this was a Georgia Southern podcast, it'd probably be all about like what's wrong with the baseball team, but it's a baseball school. So, I mean, if you're JMU and you go down there, or not go down there, but you get a sweep against one of the brand names in the Sun Belt. I mean, whatever's going on with Georgia Southern right now, you expect Georgia Southern, you expect Coastal Carolina, you expect Louisiana, maybe ODU. There's a handful of schools you expect, Southern Miss, obviously, that you just expect to be really good at baseball every year. Whatever's going on with Georgia Southern, if you're JMU, that's not in that group, you got to feel good about getting the sweep. You feel good about getting a Sun Belt sweep anytime, but like to do it against Georgia Southern.
Yeah, like you said,
you don't tell yourself that they're struggling. You just tell yourself that, like, hey, we're on the rise.
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot going wrong right now at Georgia Southern, but Marlon Eikenberry, I swear, says it every Sun Belt series, and not even every Sun Belt series. He'll say it on a non-conference weekend series. It's hard to win in college baseball, and it's even harder to sweep. And so for them to do that was already impressive, and it's difficult. But then Marlon Eikenberry even talked about it yesterday, and he talked about it on Sunday as well. JMU did that and got that series win in the sweep without their best performance. The offense was clicking on Friday and on Sunday. It was there Saturday when it needed to be with Kyle Langley getting a walk-off, but they swept Georgia Southern without great starting pitching. They had decent outings from their weekend rotation. It was kind of an uncharacteristic outing on Sunday for freshman Tyler Lutz, but they really, really, really got it done in the bullpen, which is something that honestly JMU hasn't seen this year. I think at times the bullpen has kind of been the issue when you look back to last weekend when they missed out on a chance to sweep East Tennessee. That came down to a Sunday performance out of the bullpen where it was just uncharacteristic and they could not get a third out in the 6th inning. So to have it where they swept a program, a good historical baseball program, to do that without maybe the best pitching performance from their starters, that was massive as well, especially going into, they will also play Coastal Carolina this weekend. And that is, that's not a program that you want to overlook and kind of not pay attention to because of what they were able to do, historically, but especially last season.
Yeah. And, I'll be honest, last week you had me convinced that JMU did not have the bullpen to get through 3 days unscathed. And, they come out and they perform. And like you said, I mean, Eikenberry talks about how hard it is to sweep, but it's also just, it gives you like a little cushion. I mean, you got obviously another hard series coming up. You play Coastal, but you're in a position now where, like, if you win that series, that's awesome. If you get one, though, then you're still sitting in a decent spot. Like, I know it's early in the standings and everything, but you came through the first 2 weeks, more wins than losses. Like, I think it's a big deal.
I'll say this year's JMU baseball team, in my opinion, from what I've seen, is significantly better than what it was last year. And if you didn't watch last year's series against Coastal Carolina, and if you just go back and look at the scores, you're going to think what I'm about to say is insane. But having been there for those games, JMU was like 2 outs away from winning that series. And it ends up, because of weather on a Friday night, pushing it into Saturday and having to take Max Cool out of the game when he was pitching pretty much lights out, it ends up kind of snowballing and blowing up in JMU's face a little bit there, and the scores got lopsided, but they were like 2 outs and a rain delay away from winning that series against a team that ends up being in the World Series and in the final. So, and that was a JMU team that I don't think was as good as what JMU currently has. So I think that can be a very exciting series for JMU if you can get some good pitching performances out of your weekend starters. But again, it is a tall order. You're sending 2 freshmen. Most likely you're sending 2 freshmen to the mound on Saturday and Sunday, but they are 2 guys that, they pitched well against Florida State to start the season. So you're going to want to see them have kind of their best performance, especially with someone like Tyler Lutz. You want to see him have maybe his performances that he had against Florida State more so than what he did this past weekend against Georgia Southern.
Yeah, I don't think it's a crazy statement because I was going to say something similar. Like, if my memory serves me, it's really going back to the past 2 years that they've been very close to winning series against Coastal. And, maybe this is one of those, milestones for a program when they go against a program like that, that you've been very competitive with, but you haven't quite gone over the top. If you win a series this weekend, does it just change the entire perspective of what JMU should be this season?
I think it does. Like, I really, again, when the preseason polls came out and you see 13th and it's just 1 spot removed from the bottom of the Sun Belt, a lot of that does go back to what this team was last year. And it's actually something that Lauren Laporte said about JMU softball's ranking in the preseason poll, that it is kind of reflective of what you did a year before, and players who make the All Sun Belt team, it's kind of just a past kind of award, not so much of a future award. And so, 13th seemed a little off to me, but it makes sense why they were put there after what happened last year. But they've gotten so many players out of the portal. They've had so many different guys really kind of step up and improve their roles. They're, freshmen are playing better. I think of a guy like Ike Schmidley, who didn't have the numbers last year as a sophomore, but is now leading the team in batting average as a junior. And I think because of that, this group can make a statement if they can get that win, and it really could change maybe the trajectory of the season. But that said, I think going into this weekend, if you're JMU, you really need to hope that you get Josiah Seguin back, who kind of, as Marlon Eikenberry describes him, he's an all-star shortstop and didn't play against Georgia Southern. He's in concussion protocol right now, but they're hoping. Obviously, I'm going to head out there in a little bit for their midweek against George Washington. It didn't seem like Eikenberry expected him back today, but they're hoping that he's back for Coastal Carolina, and that's a guy you need in the lineup when you're going up against a team like Coastal.
Yeah. Before we wrap this up, give me a quick recap of what's happening with lacrosse. I know you've been out there too, and they racked up some American Conference awards here this past week. Pretty impressive haul, basically sweeping those conference awards.
Yeah, they get freshman player of the week, attack player of the week, defensive player of the week. So really good weekend for them, opening up American Conference play, and pretty dominant win in their return to Harrisonburg against East Carolina. Had been a while since they were, out in Harrisonburg, but it's right back on the road for them too, but looking much better, and kind of that game is, I think, a precursor to what you're going to see through the rest of conference play with them. I think they really are just still a step above the rest of the American Conference in terms of talent and kind of skill to win these kind of games.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a shame that they kind of lost that rivalry with Florida in the conference when they moved on, but also puts them in very good position to make it back to the NCAA tournament, even in what maybe could be classified as a rebuilding year. Like,
yeah,
maybe not, depending on how you look at it, but like it does seem like they're the overwhelming favorite in the American, which is good news for the Dukes on the lacrosse field. Yeah, well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up now with that. We'll be back soon to talk JMU women's basketball, see what they did. If they pull off the upset, technically an upset against Kentucky, if they do as a 12 seed, I think Kentucky is maybe a 12-point favorite, something like that. But a lot of people also kind of picking the Dukes as maybe one of those trendy upset picks. And seems like there's going to be a lot of JMU fans. The tickets for that event in Morgantown sold out quickly. A ton of WVU fans there. And you know what? They'll be rooting for JMU in that game. So we'll see how that goes. But we'll be back to talk about win, lose, or you can't really draw on basketball, but
win, lose, or draw on March Madness.
Whatever happens, we'll be back to talk about an incredible run for the JMU women and the story everybody wanted with the Shauna Reed versus Brooks in the NCAA tournament. We'll recap all that next time. In the meantime, please subscribe wherever you listen to this, whether it's YouTube or whatever. Our bosses want more subscriptions, so I'm begging now. So just please subscribe to that, and that helps us out a lot. And we'll be back. This has been the Purple and Bold podcast from DNR Media. Search DNR Media in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you want to listen to it, and check us out. Thanks.